I would like to take this opportunity to announce my retirement.
Hansel, so hot right now. Hansel. All right, everybody, welcome back to another week of Muskies on Tap. I am your host, Gus Manti, and we're going to be giving you a somewhat quick hitter. We're just going to be talking about the current conditions up here in the Northwoods and maybe talking about some recent catches and whatnot, but we'll just get into it. We just got the Mott crew on here tonight. I'll introduce I'll introduce my brother first. We got Max on here. How are you doing tonight, Max?
I'm doing good. You sound a little tired, Gus. You a long day or something out there?
Yeah, a little bit of a long day. Got some scorched heat going on up here. Flat calm conditions. We got out at sunrise and yeah, the short night of less sleep and then going on to about starting at 7 a.m. with pure sun and zero wind kind of drains you pretty quickly. And I don't know. Yeah, definitely a little tired. A lot of bit tired.
Gotcha. All right. Well, yeah, no worries there. I totally get it. As we were talking here before we hopped on, my work has decided to pick up substantially here this summer, which is always a good thing. But at the same time, it's making these podcast nights a little difficult scheduling and everything. But I'm glad we've been able to hop on, each week and catch up. But yeah, without further ado, let me introduce our third co-host here tonight. Little record scratch moment. It is not Brian Eckel. We actually have Clayton Spees filling in. Big shoes to fill in here for Brian and I, Clayton, but I feel like you're up to the task. How you doing?
What up, boys? I'm doing good. Again, yeah, a little scorched from the heat. I didn't have as long of a day on the water, but this afternoon was absolutely brutal out there, and kind of got to start being careful about where we're fishing, due to water temps cranking up there. I think the fish are even telling us that it's too warm for them too, because it's really slowed down lately.
Yeah, you guys have been the chain whisperers. So obviously you guys are in person together here tonight, which is always great. Um, so you guys were both out guiding today. It sounded like today might have been a little bit slower, but I know Clayton, we'll get into your most recent trip to Vermilion here, but for Gus, you've had some pretty good days out on the water here leading up to this big, I guess, warm front or whatever you want to call it, scorched earth front.
Scorched earth, yeah, lava hot. Magma.
Magma.
Magma. Yeah, no, it's been pretty good leading up to this. We boated some really, really nice fish and I think a little bit of Clayton rubbed off on me after, fishing with them on Tuesday nights and you know, he's got those two mega giants out there on the chain this year and luckily for a client of mine got another chain mega giant landed just a few mornings ago. That was when it was all cloudy and juicy and pre-storm frontal. Had these guys hop on. I decided to start super early, wanted to start before the major in the AM and just had the guy rolling top water right away. And these guys, it was kind of a mixed group. I had three guys in the boat. One of them has been, fishing for 30 or so years. And then a few of them were a little bit more newer to the sport. And the one guy that was throwing top water, I think he said his biggest to the date was 37. And we were rolling through these series of spots kind of connected to each other. And the one guy on the top water had a fish come up and fully like sideswipe it and then come back and eat it. And then he set the hook just a little bit too early, and kind of pulled the bait right out of its mouth. And then we kind of chatted through it. The one guy that also has been fishing a long time was kind of, giving him some pointers because he knew him a lot better than I do. And so we kind of talked through that. It's like, okay, wait for the rod to load up, wait till you feel the fish. And he got that all down. And then it was like everything happens for a reason there. It was like perfect. I mean, I don't know how big that fish was that, you know, swiped and missed. It seemed like a pretty decent fish, but who knows? But either way, about 20 minutes later, when we just kind of kept going slowly through the spot, he had pretty much like a deja vu. This fish came up and like swiped at it and created a giant boil, but didn't, eat it or anything. And he did a really good job keeping composure and keeping it going straight. And it came up and wolfed it down just like the last one. Rod loaded up, he set the hook perfect, and that one dogged him around the boat for a few times and got it in the bag, and that was a 4-footer right on the nuts, and that was a pretty special fish to be a part of. That guy's personal best and biggest so far in the season. So shout out to Jonathan on a very, very large inland Wisconsin muskie, especially on a chain where supposedly giants don't exactly exist, but man, it's proven itself to be a really, really good year on big fish.
So, so let's talk about that, because I just realized the last time we had Clayton on, we were kind of chatting about his giant Northwoods Eagle River chain fish that he kind of debriefed us on. And like before the podcast could even drop, next thing I know, I'm seeing stuff circulate on social media and our text group chat starts blowing up. And this guy goes out and sticks another one with a client of his, and probably one of the coolest videos I've seen fishing wise in a very, very long time. I won't ruin any more of it for you. So you want to pass that mic over to Clayton and have him run us through that one, because that was a pretty
Right,
epic,
yeah.
pretty epic moment for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that again was like kind of a perfect storm happened. Super special moment. I had just dropped off a group of guys in the morning, or in the afternoon. We'd been out like for 4 or 5 days in a row, and we were getting fish. Only one or two that were really nice, a lot of little ones, and they were kind of struggling on their own. I think it was a group of 12 or whatever, but we had a mega storm coming, and it was coming hard and fast. And I told those guys, I was like, if you got any steam left in you got to get out and get fishing, because something's going to happen, and I left them at that, and I headed back to the launch and picked up a mom with two boys. One of them, I think the younger one actually, it was like a 7 and an 8-year-old, and I think the 7-year-old caught a tiger muskie once when he was walleye fishing with his dad. Like, they do a lot of fishing, so they kind of knew their way around the rods and everything. As young as they are, they were able to cast and retrieve, and figure eights were as good as you could expect a 7 and 8-year-old to do. But it was really cool. Like, they were super into it. So I did a little explaining, and we slowed our roll over to the first spot. I think the very first cast, the 8-year-old threw a bucktail out and had a fish follow in. And he was like, "Oh, there's one." I was like, "Wow, this is nuts." So I was like, "All right." So I'm like, looking, the weather's coming, it's getting juicy. So like, we're going a little bit further, and he's like, "You got any suics?" And I was like, "I've got suics, but I got something better." And I'm gonna shout out Chaos Tackle and Navins here, because they've been hot for me this year. And I told him to put on this Navin, and he really liked it. He got up in the back of the boat right next to me, and he starts kind of twitching around the side of the boat. He's like, "Oh, I like that," and takes a cast out. And as he's casting, it's thundering and lightning around us. And I'm like, we should probably get some rain gear out and, start getting ready to hit the shore, if you want. And they're like, "No, we're okay." And he gets the bait like halfway back and gets crushed and just leans back into it. And he's like, "I got one." And I'm like, "Come on." I turn around. I'm like, "Oh, yes, you do." And I didn't know how big it was until it launched out of the water, completely out somersaulted, like right in front of the camera, right in front of the boat, in front of everyone, put on a good show. And we put it right in the bag, and it went in super nice and easy. And he's screaming and hollering, and everyone's hooting and hollering. And in the meantime, now it's downpouring. And so we start working on, I don't even have all my rain gear on. I didn't really care at that point. Like, we were so jacked up. I got it unpinned easy, let it sit in the net for a minute. It's hailing out now and blowing like a son of a gun, like probably 30-mile-an-hour winds. We're just tucked behind this little island, just hanging out. Like we're in a pretty good spot for a thunderstorm, I guess. But to deal with this, my camera lenses are filling up with water. My GoPros, I'm like, I'm just gonna let them run, like drain the water out of the camera lens real quick. Set it all back up, get everything ready, moved all our tackle boxes, rods, and everything out of the way. Came up with a game plan once again for how to handle this fish, and take care of it. This fish was completely different than the last one. It had a huge head on it and a little bit skinnier than the last big one that we got. But nonetheless, an absolute giant trophy fish for, northern Wisconsin, for inland Wisconsin, anywhere. But as I pull that thing out of the net, I realized that this is another magical fish, and it just kept coming and coming, and we laid it on the board, and they're screaming 49, 49 and a half, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, this is unbelievable. So yeah, we got a quick measurement. We sat down in the 2 chairs, and he held the back half of the fish. I held the front half. We got whatever pictures we could in that torrential downpour. Hung it over the side of the boat. I held onto it for maybe 10 seconds or so, and I asked him if he wanted to hold it to release it. He said, no, I'm enjoying it just the way it is right now, and slapped it on the tail. Away it went. And yeah, swam away super strong, right back into the weeds to live another day. And that was the end of our action. We saw a few more on, like on the electronics as we were working around some spots, but we never did have another bite after that. But I don't think it mattered because they were just jacked the whole rest of the time. I've actually got them again here in a week or so for another evening outing, but I don't know how we're gonna top that one because that was incredible. And actually, I'm not 100% sure, obviously, because I didn't put that fish in the boat again. But the next night, I was out on the same spot, and I was ripping my top water through some surface weeds and got absolutely blown up where this fish came out of the water, threw my bait like 3 feet up, 7 feet forward, and a giant mouth. It could very well have been the same fish that was ready to eat already. Like I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many big fish are in this body of water, more than what I ever thought maybe, but that was too close to be something random. I think that fish was already back to eating again. So that was sweet.
Crazy.
That's crazy to hear. I mean, the one thing that stuck out to me watching that video was just how composed that guy was. I mean, to hear that he was only 8 years old is just nuts. I mean, I love the fact that he was like, "Hey, I want to throw a suic or a diving rise, not your typical like swimming dog or bucktail type, what you would imagine to have if you had an 8-year-old in your boat to get him to throw musky lures." And so he's out there. I mean, I watched that video. I thought he had thrown navins for the last 3-4 years. I mean, the way he was working it seemed to come second, very naturally to him. And then I think the thing that was the most impressive was how he handled that, 49.5-inch fish, brought it into the net, like kind of just dragged it in there, didn't let the fish overpower him or didn't freak out. I mean, I'm like, dang, I can't even say that I would have that calmness, if I had a 49.5-incher on the chain.
I didn't even realize until afterwards that I'd forgotten to back any of my drags off at all. So that he fought that thing on a fully locked down drag and just absolutely manhandled it. Like that kid, I mean, those kids have been fishing for a while. I think as long as they were old enough to stand, they probably had a rod of some sort in their hands. I mean, they didn't have a whole lot of musky fishing experience. That older one probably a little bit more than the younger one, but that must be in their blood because they knew exactly what to do, when to do it, how to fish. Some of the best fishing 8-year-olds, better than I was at 8 years old, and I was fishing at that age too. But I mean, these kids were good. Like it was awesome to have them on boat. I can't wait to get them back out again.
Yeah, I could imagine. I mean, it's incredible. And that kid obviously now is going to be, ruined's probably a bad word, but I would assume he's going to be pretty ruined here for the rest of his life with musky fishing. And
Hooked for
we'll probably
life,
see
for
those
sure.
guys on whatever musky tournament trail exists in the next, 10 to 12 years. We'll probably be seeing them out there.
Yeah, out on the trail at like 16 as soon as they can drive their boat to the to where they're going. But also and Clayton, with that fish and the Navin, I know you're gonna get one from Chaos. Vince is nice enough to send you one, and you're gonna give the one to the kid.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna add. Yeah, so I contacted Vince yesterday. We had to order some rods for our Muskie League, and I was telling him the story, and he's like, yeah, I saw that video. That was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I was like, that was on the Navin, right? And he's like, you got to be kidding me. I was like, nope. He's like, well, we have a policy. We're gonna send that kid a bait. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna have him out here again in 2 weeks. He's like, well, we're sending him a bait. I want to send him a nice note and everything else. Like that's one of the coolest things ever. And I was like, well, send me a bait. If you get one close to whatever you got, I'll give him the one that he caught his fish on if he wants it. And I mean, Vince Chaos Tackle, they're awesome. Like that's super cool that they do that. So shout out to them again.
For sure.
Oh yeah, big time. And that's just so cool to see large fish. It did seem like it was like a week. Wasn't it only like a week apart from your big fish? Yeah,
8 days.
8 days, Clayton says, between the two. And that's pretty incredible. And I know has there been any other large fish that you've heard of this year?
48 3/4.
A 48 and 3/4 in early June. So yeah, another large fish caught out there in the chain. So they definitely pump them out. And even just on league the other night, fishing with Clayton, we go to a spot where I told him that we hooked and lost one that I estimated to be about 43, 44. And before we could even get to that spot, I was in Clayton's boat for league, and on top water, I raised this fish that's like a double wide 45, 46. And I'm looking at Clayton, I'm like, this is even another different fish. And we're like getting close to where that one was lost earlier. And then we go back and re-raise it again on top water. Then Clayton gets blown up where the fish completely like botched hitting the lure, like in between where these two fish were at. That could have been a different one. And yeah, when these fish want to like eat and pack up, they pack up like crazy. And you can, I mean, realistically, double or triple in very, very short order out there if the window is right or if the weather's right. And it seems like when these big fronts roll in, it always gets some of the larger fish moving out there. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me very excited for what's going to happen, during the PMTT event, during Paul's Pro Am, a few of the tournaments that are left here that will take place on the chain, just to see what else kind of comes out of that body of water. I don't know if it's a stocking class that just like has been hell bent on getting that size, and then this year they decided to show up, or I don't know what the hell is kind of made these fish more active. I mean, we kind of touched on it last time Clayton came on, but I don't care whatever the reason is, it's great.
Right. It is pretty awesome. But the one thing that I think Clayton and I agree on is like certain weather and when these weather fronts are coming in dictates like what fish are eating. Because once those fronts moved in, since that big one we boated earlier this week, it completely changed. Like we saw it in league. In Monday Night League, there's still pretty good numbers, but the biggest one was 41 and a half. And then we rolled in the next day and it was still pretty tough. And I think Tuesday Night League, the biggest of the night was like 33 and a half. And then today now, it's Wednesday and we only saw small fish and none of the big fish were showing up. So it's like all the big fish were eating and going nuts for the storm fronts and multiple fronts that were rolling through, and then they kind of just halted, but not for long. We got more fronts rolling in and such that I think are gonna absolutely just turn these beasts on big time on top water for sure, and bucktails. I think it's gonna be incredible fishing. Looking at the extended forecast for early August, we're gonna be blessed with like a whole week of highs of like 70 to 71, even in the upper 60s, and some chances of rain, and it looks really good.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. I mean, I'm sure people love hearing about all these big fish stories, but I'm guessing they're probably sitting in their cars or wherever they're listening to this and saying like, all right, well, how are you guys getting them? So I know you guys probably don't want to give away everything here, but like, I guess if you could, shed a little bit of light on what's going on out there, just to kind of touch on, especially, I guess, let me rephrase it, moving forward, you talk about some of those cool downs. Do you anticipate that will push more fish, into areas that are catchable, or what do you guys think will happen there?
Well, I think we're getting into that, midsummer. The bloom is starting to happen. Water's clouding up a little bit. And with the warming water temps and stuff, as these fronts come through and these fish turn on, they're starting to headhunt baits, which tells me rubber's kicking on. We're gonna start working baits super fast. We've had a lot of action burning bait blades as fast as you possibly can, popping rubber through the weeds as fast as you can. And I'm starting to lose a lot of fish, which kind of goes with working baits really, really fast. A lot of times these fish will miss baits, but we're getting reaction strikes now. They're not feeding as much on sight anymore. And now more so, I think, on vibrations. And you get good baits with, the right vibrations and stuff. And they definitely are triggering these eats. Top water is going to be key for sure in low light conditions, early morning, late evening, and middle of the day. If it's cloudy, you can't go wrong with that, in my opinion. That's basically going to be the arsenal. We're going to throw blades that we can burn, rip rubber as much as you possibly can, as hard as you can through these weeds now. This ain't like Minnesota where they like rubber pulled slow. They like it hot and fast here this time of year, in my opinion, for the most part. And yeah, you just go as hard as you can this time of year. Hopefully you're all tuned up from, through June and July, and you got the old arms ready to roll, because it's time to put it to work. These fish are hot.
Oh man, you're getting me fired up. I'm sitting over here like loosening up the shoulder, like put me in, coach. I'm ready to go here. I've been on sitting on the bench. I've been sitting on the bench for too long here. I gotta get back up there and get after it. This is the type of fishing I live for, for what it sounds like. I mean, this is my favorite time. One of the favorite times of the year for me, for sure.
It's kind of moved into mine as well, that like cool down for the longest time, getting into musky fishing way back, you'd always hear about like September, October, or really specifically like September from everybody being like their absolute favorite. But the cool downs in August have been some of my absolute favorites, and it's throwing some big baits in like super shallow water and just working it through the sloppiest stuff you can find. It's a pain in the ass, but it's always worth it. And it's also the time of year, if you're using big baits like that, it's, at least you hope for this. You hope you don't get like follows and stuff with the big baits, but you're either going to see nothing or they're just going to demolish it out there. It's like one or the other. That's what you're hoping for.
So are you guys, with the rubber stuff, are you guys throwing a lot of unweighted stuff, or you're more leaning more towards the weighted stuff to get, down a little deeper and rip it through those weeds? Or are you trying to rip that unweighted stuff and keep it over the top?
I've always found when you got to work it this hard is staying away from the unweighted stuff, because the unweighted stuff, if you work it too hard, it blows out of the water too much. And which is why we use like mid-depth tubes with blades on the back, adds for that drag and keeps it in the water without blowing out. Bulldogs with their heads, tilted down so that they have a lot of hop. Medusas, even weighted medusas. There's all sorts of things now, and I'm definitely going to start throwing a lot more beavers as well in the shallow water if need be. Yeah, I think that's going to be the name of the game. I don't know if you got anything else on that. 100%, yeah.
All right. Well, I'll stop making you guys pour out secrets or anything like that. I don't know how much of that really is this time of year, but I appreciate you guys shedding some light on that. Clayton, you got something?
You could have like 2 boats or 3 boats following each other and working the same bait, and everyone's got a little different style of working it. So, I can share the secrets, and people can go out and try and mimic it, but they're not necessarily going to have the same cadence as me, and or the same cadence as Gus. Like Gus and I work, and you too. Like when the 3 of us get in the boat together, and we go on, one of these Operation Dokies, and cruise to faraway reaches. We can run the same stuff, and we're all working a little bit different, and you just never know which style is going to work on that particular day. So just because
Yeah.
I'm saying that you rip the crap out of it, you know, bait or burn blades or whatever, there's still a cadence. You got to be comfortable with what you're doing, and you know, just keep mixing it up until you find something that works, because just a straight hard rip every single time might not be the key. You might have to throw in a couple extra pops, or you might have, you know, hop in, rip in. There, you know, there's so many different ways of working these baits. So just because we're telling you what we're doing doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work for you. So everyone's kind of got to get out there and, you know, just mess around with things, try different speeds, try different length of pulls, you know, different dead sticks, you know, whatever it may be, you know, keep mixing it up until you figure out what works for you.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think this is a great time of year, you know, when you're talking about mixing stuff up, because you do really feel like you should know what's working. You know, you talk about your arsenal, and there's a few different tools there. You talk about your rubber, your blades, your top waters, you know, for this time of year. And like, I even think back to last year on one of those operations you were talking about. I think that, you know, we were there either the weekend before or some, you know, a few days prior. And I think blades were hot, you know, I think all the fish that the time, I think we were in separate boats, but like most of our action was coming on blades that day. And then we all went out there again, and I think we were running 4 in the boat, and either 2 or 3 of you guys were throwing blades, and I was throwing rubber out the back. And then really that day, the rubber was the only thing that was going. And, you know, it was like very stark difference as far as what was working and what was not that day. I mean, they wanted big rubber, you know, mid Medusas. They were like, nah, I'm good on that. You know, they wanted big rubber, moved extremely fast. And then we went back out there in that same body of water, I think the day after that, and it was a whole hodgepodge of stuff that worked. So it seems like it's kind of dealer's choice right now. And like, that's where I think it's really good advice that, you know, if you're fishing good spots where you feel like there are fish and you're not getting any feedback, that's feedback. And that feedback is you need
True.
to change it up. So, not that I'm an authority on that. It just kind of going off the experience. It just seems like that's a good time of year to do this. Rather, you know, sometimes like in the fall, it's like, hey, I know they're going to eat big rubber. So you just kind of, you grind it out with that, you know, you're just kind of, all right, this is what I'm going to throw all day. Where this time of year, I feel like it's a little easier to kind of just rifle through and throw a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Fisher, it seems like we've gotten some random windows of fish biting these past few weeks, which is good. That's normal midsummer stuff. I mean, for sure, some of these fish are coming on peak majors and moon phases, no doubt, or right before storms. But like, there's some random times in the morning where I got some dude up there burning a bucktail, and the fish comes firing in from no anything change, and it's cool to see that, and we're really gonna get that for, you know, make the most of it. That burning blades is only going to kind of go through parts of September, you know, that, and if you're lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I even think
Oh
back
yeah, might as
to
well. We got
what's that?
one other thing, one window.
One pro tip.
Okay.
Pro tip, pro tip from Clayton here.
So I have no explanation for this at all, but for whatever reason, with my experience in Muskie League, Monday nights, and I think it's any night, but for whatever reason, this area up here, I don't know if anyone else experiences this. If you do, let us know, because it's very interesting. 4 o'clock, from 4 to 5, fish are caught every single week. I don't care what the moon phase is, what's going on with the weather. There's always fish caught in the first like half hour of our league. Pretty much every single night. It doesn't matter what month, what the weather's like, or nothing like that. If anybody else could confirm this with me, that'd be super cool, because I think it's odd, but it works.
You think it's got anything to do with, you know, maybe just everybody's out there first few drifts, they're locked in, they're all
Everyone's
fresh, and then and they're fishing super hard, and then, you know, they get a few beers in them and start, you know, chit chatting with their partner, and then, you know, 2-3 hours goes by not fishing very hard, and then at the last hour they're like, all right, we got to lock in and get one or get another one
Yeah,
here in this last hour during
yeah. I think Clayton just said you nailed it.
I'm only going off my own experience. That's definitely happened to me a few
Right.
times when we sub in for Monday night Muskie Leagues. You know, Gus and I will be all fired up to get out there and tense for that like first hour, and you know, maybe we'll get a fish, maybe we won't, and then we kind of just start talking about some random stuff, and I was like, oh shit, it's 7:30. We haven't seen anything in an hour and a half. So,
yeah.
yeah.
You go hard and it's 5 o'clock. Yeah. And then you just kind of like, all of a sudden you just realize like nothing happened on the last 4 spots. You're like, wait a second.
Yeah,
We got to
wait,
get
this
going.
sucks
We're running out of time.
All right, well, okay, let's move back to some big fish talk, because this obviously this place Vermilion, Gus and I've only been to once, but it, you know, definitely captivated us in a pretty crazy way. So when you let us know that you were taking a trip over there with some buddies, the FOMO, as the kids say, was very real, and I am pumped to hear about this trip. So I don't know. I know you guys are there for a few days. There's probably a lot to unpack. Maybe just start with some high level takeaways. You know, what was it like to be back? Obviously, you were there with a little bit of vengeance in mind after what happened to you guys in the PMTT there last year. So, what was the feeling like going back there? What were the expectations, and just kind of how were things going?
I left that lake last year very defeated and very mad at it, but in the same sense, we moved some absolute giants, fish of lifetimes, multiple times, and so that made me also cannot wait to get back there. And when Kyle Hunzader, Hunzy Tales, when he put a group message out to a bunch of our buds saying, hey, we're thinking about anybody interested in a Vermilion trip, and I responded right away like, I'm in 100%, just let me know when. And I was pretty much the only one that responded to that. And he's like, all right, great, well, our buddy Jamie wants to go too, so let's plan something out. So I kind of just was like, all right, we need to stay at Fortune Bay, we're gonna camp. Like, if you can get us in there camping, it'd be super cheap. He locked it all in for us, and obviously I was super excited. I absolutely love that body of water. I mean, there's so much to it. It's like a shield lake, like going to Canada, you know, very similar. Fish is a little different, but has the similarities. So, we were jacked, and, you know, we were, as you had your podcast last week, Kyle was on there for a while we were traveling there. And, so we were all hyped up, super excited. I don't think these guys had any idea, how fast we could get on the fish there. And I don't necessarily think that I could do that every time. The lake was on. We showed up and probably got there at about 10:30 at night. We got set up. We sat down, had a beer, and I told them where we were going to go in the morning. They had some, Kyle had been there previously one time. So he had spots that he wanted to fish. Jamie had never been there, so he's like, whatever you guys want to do. But I was basically like, we need to start on this spot, this spot, this spot, and then we can audible and, you know, go from there, just because I know there has to be fish on these spots. They're just too good not to. And we had 3 fish in the bag by 8:30 or so in the morning. I think we got up at 4:45, got on the water. For sure we were fishing before 5:30. And just went right to catching fish, and they were just like, holy cow, like, this is awesome. I'm like, well, it's not always like this. This is they were definitely firing off. I did get the 2 smallest muskies I've ever seen out there, out of the back of the boat. One wasn't even 30 inches, but Kyle ended up with a really nice one right away in the morning. We were all jacked up, and proceeded to pound water for really hard for the rest of the day. We went in, I think, and took a little break and had some brunch, and then went out and fished until like 10:30 at night, barely having any action after that. And I was like, this is more like what it's like. But close to the end of the night, Jamie did have a giant up that was over 50. So he's like, oh, we got to go back on that. I'm like, oh yeah, don't worry, we will. And that was all on rocks. So do you want me to keep going on this? Like, just keep rolling through the days,
just
tell the story.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, we had a late dinner, and basically went to bed at like 12:30 with the plan to get up, still trying to hit that morning minor. I think we were trying to get up at 4, and I couldn't get those guys to wake up. I must have fished them a little too hard in the morning. So we ended up being about an hour late getting out on the water. And I don't know if that made a difference or not, but we didn't really do too much. I think we had maybe 1 or 2 follows on the rocks in the morning. And I was like, you know what? Let's take a run and let's go check out some weeds. And so, completely different from what we had done already. And we ran to this area that I've fished every time I've been there. And I'd never seen a muskie of any substantial size, caught a few pike, but I was like, well, I haven't I haven't been there this time of year or this month of the year anyways. Let's go check it out. I know that if they're here, we're gonna see all kinds. If they're not, we'll move on and go back to rocks. But we pull in there and caught a pike or two. I had up like a low 40s fish, and I was like, wow, that's something. And then shortly after that, Jamie had up another super giant, like 50 pluser. He raised it 2 different times. And just couldn't get it to go. And that was like, all right, we need to spend some quality time in here. We fished through that spot, kind of expanded our spot on the second time through, raised another big one in a different area, within sight of the first one. So we had 2 50 plusers going plus multiple others. I had another mid 40s up. Couldn't get those to go. We fished until like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, decided to take a late lunch, went and got some food, recharged. And I was like, let's go check out some other stuff I've never been into, but there's supposed to be weeds in here. So we drove in and graphed through another area. And I was like, wow, this looks like crap. I mean, if we were in Canada, it looks really good, but we're not. So this probably isn't going to work. But they're like, well, we might as well fish it. And I was like, fine, whatever. So I was kind of half-assing it and not really super excited about it. And I think it was 5 casts in. Jamie caught a 48 1/4 and an absolute slob. Like this fish was
Oh yeah.
definitely the heaviest fish of the trip by far that we got in the boat. And I was like, there's no way we're going to get any more in here, but which we definitely could have. We fished it fairly hard and then ended up leaving, going back over where we had those other ones going. And those fish vacated the area. All the fish left the weeds after that. Like we never moved another muskie in the weeds. We kept visiting it, throughout the afternoon. Finally, we headed back out to rocks and for the evening bite because they wanted to go back on that big one that Jamie had up. And so we fished that, nothing. Went to another spot that I had a lot of confidence in and got about halfway through it. And Kyle sets the hook on what he thought was a rock, and the fish started moving and fighting. And he's like, oh, it's a good one. And we got this fish up to the side of the boat. Probably, I mean, now we're looking at it. After watching the video and stuff, I'm thinking it was north of 52 probably.
Oh.
Just a mega. We had one opportunity to possibly net it. It would have been possible botch net job if we did try and net it. It's really hard to say. He had it by the boat. We went for it, pulled back, got the net tangled inside the boat, and tried to untangle it. And Kyle walked the fish around the front of the boat and was fighting it. And the fish ended up straightening all the hooks out and got away right before we were going to net it. So that was a real heartbreaker. Kyle took it really well. Like, I don't know what he was feeling inside, but I definitely felt like crap. It was, I mean, I felt so bad for him because they've never caught a fish of that size on inland of any kind. They fish the bay, so they've got all sorts of big fish. They know how to handle big fish. They know how to fight big fish. And this one, I guess, was just not meant to be, unfortunately. So we ended our night. We fished through some more stuff, fished into the night. No more action really after that. So that was the end of day 2. Day 3, they were made sure to get it. We all got up on time that day. We definitely wanted to get out there. The wind had picked up even more overnight. And so we did the best that we could fishing in the wind for like half the day. And we took lunch and it was just scorching hot out, but windier and crap. And we're trying to figure out, how are we going to combat this? And I was like, well, I'm willing to run, fish this wind, as long as the trolling motor can handle it. But when it's done, like we're going to have to, do something else. Like we might troll. And they're like, well, we like trolling because they're from the bay. Obviously they're good at trolling.
Yeah.
So they were all for it. We went out and we tried to fish like 2 different spots and just got our butts kicked out there. Like I literally couldn't hold the boat on like 9 or 10 on my trolling motor, and we still had plenty of juice. Like it was just blowing us backwards. It was ripping. Worse than I've ever tried fishing out there before. We took a little water over the front even in my 621, which was impressive. So they're like, let's troll. And I had just put a purchasing little order in before we left at Team Rhino for a little special something that had just come out, new color of a bait. And shout out Gus. The new Gus and the 13-inch grandma. Snapped that sucker on, snapped on a headlock because headlocks supposedly work there. And then Jamie wanted to troll a blade in the worst way over the top of the rocks. So we weighted the crap out of a big stagger banger and set that out there. And that was definitely a winning combination. We went through, I think we just kind of trolled our way from where I gave up casting to my first favorite rock spot. And we popped a nice fish there. And then that was great. That one was on a headlock. So we were like, all right, this is going to work. I wonder if we can do any more of this. So we keep going. We went for like another 2 hours probably. And it was starting to get dark out. And we were heading towards a famous spot out on a lake that I hate. It smells really bad there.
That gives it away.
If that gives it away. But anyway, so we were working our way over that way, and I touched bottom with the baits, and right after we hit bottom, I looked and I just kind of had the live imaging in the water facing back, or no, I think I had it facing forward or something, and I was like, oh, there was a mark just flashed right on the bottom underneath us. I was like, that could hit that down rod back there, and I never more than got the words out of my mouth, and the rod went off, and I was like, holy crap, there it is. And Jamie pulled it out, handed it to me because it was on the grandma, which was the bait that I wanted to run. And I no more than got the rod in my hands, and this fish comes up to the surface and starts head shaking. And I'm like, whoa, that thing's throwing a lot of water. And they're like, is it big? I'm like, I don't know. And then it dove down deep and started head shaking deep. And then I knew it was a good fish. And fought it pretty hard. It took me a while to start gaining on it. But then once I did, it came to the net clean, put it in the bag. I was like, sweet, that's like a 46, 47, kind of trying to be conservative about it. We got it unpinned and pulled that one out, and it was another 49.5 incher. Just kept coming out of the net again. Just a heavily built, beautiful vermilion fish. So that's by far my biggest trolling fish. That's my biggest in Minnesota. Yeah, that basically made the trip. We ended up switching to another headlock after that, ran 2 headlocks in that Gus bait and trolled well into the night without another rip. Saw a few other fish on the live or whatever, but nothing else ate after that. I think we might have had a rip on that blade over a rock pile. I wasn't sure if we were snagged or if we actually had a fish. If it was a fish, it was really big. But I ended up kind of half circling around this rock pile, and we hooked up on something, and it was on for a little bit, and then all of a sudden it was gone. So I really can't say what happened there, but we might have had 3 total hits. But what a trip. I mean, 7 fish in 3 days out there is pretty awesome in my opinion. I don't know what the good days are out there, but I feel like that was a really good weekend.
Yeah. Nice welcome back. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, after our ventures out there of taking a while to even raise a fish and not really get a bite until the tournament, I could believe how hard that body of water can truly be. So getting that amount of fish, I think, is super impressive and really sounds like you guys dialed in like a lot of patterns. It seemed like if you just only fished rocks, you could only be so successful during that weekend, and if you only casted, you could only be so successful during the weekend. So going to weeds, rocks, trolling seemed to really pay off big time, which is pretty cool to see. And just that you raised those giant fish, had a giant hooked up and everything. Yeah, that for sure gets us a little more pushing the tush to get out there and
Motivated to get back.
Yeah. Head on back there. Yeah, what were
Oh,
we
for
just discussing
sure.
before the podcast? Maybe not doing the Alliance tournament and going to Vermilion the weekend before Tonka. That would be a lot of Minnesota in 1 week, but I mean that's not a bad thing, I don't think.
I don't think so either. Yeah, I mean hearing that story gets me really jacked up for the next trip back there. Hopefully it's this year. If it's not, it will definitely be in 2025. I mean, yeah, pretty cool. You got that one on your Gus, you want to just talk about that? I guess I probably should have asked you at the beginning, but how big is the ego in check now? You got a bait named after
Yeah,
you? I mean, what's going on here? Like, how did that all happen?
I don't know. Old Jeff at TRO has been reaching out to me over like the springtime, asking about colors that I like, just kind of hinting at things, and I'm like showing him some stuff, and he's like, "Oh, okay," because he's probably looking for something different to have on his website or something that really stands out. And then I show him this 13-inch grandma that caught a bunch of nice fish last fall trolling that I just bought off of Facebook. It must have been some really old show color or shop special color. I have no idea. And then
Mhm.
I ran it like once or twice and I just didn't do anything and it was just catching on other baits and I was just being really stubborn because I'm like, God, I really want to get one on a 13-inch grandma and I slapped this holographic tape all over it and it looks all funky and kind of weird, but it's just flashing and it looks great down there. And the first time I run it with that holographic tape, I think we popped two that afternoon and in the late fall, like in November, and we didn't start trolling until like 3 p.m. So I'm like, oh, okay, we got something fairly special. We got a mid 30s and then, knocking into the mid 40s on this thing. I'm like, okay, this is pretty sweet. And I sent that picture of that bait to Jeff, and he's like, all right, that we can probably do because I don't think they had too many show colors or TRO colors for the grandmas. And then out of the blue, he just texted me. He's like, how does this look? And it's like the finished product of a grandma. And I'm like, that's awesome. I'm like, what are you gonna call it? He's like, I was thinking about calling it Gus. How do you like that? I'm like, sure. I don't know what else to call it, but that would sound great. And then I went out trolling the next day that I got the care package from Jeff with Clayton and caught one in the first 40 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes. Yeah, on the 13-inch Gus grandma. So I'm
Nice,
I'm pretty
nice.
pumped
Well,
and
that's really cool. Really cool, Jeff,
yeah.
to do that. Awesome,
Yeah, shout out Jeff at TRO.
awesome. Yeah, shout out. All right, well, so that's some great recapping, guys. Damn, that's a lot of good trips. Sounds like July has just been really good to you guys. I mean, I'm very jealous, but it's really fun to hear about all the successes because we certainly go through our downtime. So to have a month like that where you guys were just knocking some big fish out of the park, I mean, that's awesome. What I guess now, I mean, looking forward, what's on the docket here for August? We touched on maybe, I guess I got to stop. Apparently I say touch on too much, so I'm working on that. We talked on the, we talked on the Alliance tournament earlier. Um, and maybe doing that, and then obviously Tonka for the PMTT. But what else is going on? I mean, are you guys looking forward to those? Should we do the National Muskie Championship? What are we thinking here?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we've been tossing up in the air, just going to fish kind of whatever that weekend, in middle of August, but we'll just kind of play it by ear. I always like doing that little tournament. That'll be a weekend of Max, Brian, and I doing like a muskie bender type thing. So we'll kind of choose whatever. And Tonka, yeah, I mean, I'm getting excited, obviously crossing our fingers for solid weather, anything that can keep traffic down and muskies out there actually hitting lures, maybe like with their mouths open, I guess would be kind of cool. I mean, I've seen that now twice actually this month. Fish coming up and hitting I think swimming dogs and Poseidons, they'll smack it with their mouths shut. And honestly, that just makes me believe like a lot of the missed fish that we have out there are these muskies just come up and just punting the baits with they might even be tail smacking them, who knows, but that's
That is the
probably what
first
they're gonna do in
time.
Tonka. So
Yeah, it's the first time I ever saw that firsthand on Tonka. We were fishing the clear stuff, and really nice fish came up. I was actually throwing throwing a pit bull actually. Shout out Jeff again, but yeah, I was throwing the pit bull, and I literally watched this fish like submarine the pit bull, but he never opened up his mouth, and he hit the pit bull so hard it created slack in my line, but it was only maybe 9-10 feet away. And I mean, it just hit it like almost like he just was like, "Get the hell out of here!" I don't know what the heck that was
out of
about.
aggression, maybe, I guess. Yeah,
Man,
but it's
weird stuff.
but it's only just like these summer months, I'm sure, where they're just going to do that because they're so active and moving around so much anyways that sometimes they're just kind of out for vengeance or they're out just looking for some smoke out there in the water. They just want to go beat up something if they're bored.
Yeah,
So
just looking to have
they're
one.
finding our baits and just demolishing them and making our lives, that much more of a mystery. Like, what the hell do they want out there?
Yeah. So what
They
about you,
want it.
Clayton? What do you got going on for August here?
Well, there's a lot of guiding going on, so filling up pretty good with that. That weekend of the Alliance tournament, I just checked my schedule to see, just because you got me excited when you said Vermilion, but I got scattered guide trips throughout that weekend, so I won't be able to go there, unfortunately. Yeah. Oh, man.
Shucks.
But
I
I
love
am
how
gonna
we're
make
planning this in real time.
yeah. I am gonna make a trip next weekend, I think down to Green Bay to jump in with the boys down there. Do a little casting, hopefully. I've never
Awesome.
done that yet down there, and that's sounds like it's starting to heat up a little bit. So yeah, casting bite could be on. Hoping for good enough weather. Maybe I can go down there for a day and a half, 2 days or whatever, and chase some Great Lakes strain fish for a little bit. That's probably the most exciting thing besides the PMTT. Definitely getting excited for that too. Always nervous when you go. Like, I haven't been to Tonka yet. I know you've got a little bit of time out there now. Um, Sounds like it's something that we should be able to figure out, but there's always that, what if, or, question mark for our first time down there. So,
Mhm.
excited for it, nervous about it. We need a fish bad if we want to fish in Eel River for the championship. And I kind of do, because obviously that's our home water. So we're gonna give it everything we've got. Nick's getting dialed in now. He's catching a lot of fish. He's feeling a little better, about things, I think, even though he keeps telling me it's all luck.
That's good.
But I know he's just full of it, and he really is he's getting back on track. I might get my buddy back.
There you go.
But
Good.
yeah, we're getting
Yeah.
excited for that. So it's gonna be a busy
Yeah.
month, and really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, that is interesting. I guess, you bringing that up, needing a fish. So like, you think you'll be more nervous going to that one than a typical PMTT event, or kind of same old, same old? And I mean, obviously every tournament you go into, you expect to get one. So I don't know if it really changes the game plan or anything as far as like what you're going to be looking for. But I mean, any different type of feeling going into that one?
No, I think probably Nick and I have the same feelings about it. Like, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. I mean, we did really well our first year. Our second year, we skunked out. Last year we did really well again. If, I guess if something happens and we can't do the championship, whatever, maybe I'll go to Canada again. So, I mean, there's got to be a silver lining behind everything. Obviously, we'd like to represent and fish our home water, and um, we're gonna fish give it all we got down there or over there in Tonka for sure. But if it doesn't happen, we're not nervous about it. I don't think, as far as that's concerned.
Sure.
We try and keep it light, and not take it too seriously. Obviously trying as best as we can to catch fish, but if it doesn't happen, it's not like we're not on suicide watch or anything, so no need to worry about that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
well
that's
said.
good.
That's really good. Cool. Well, I mean, if you guys got anything else, speak now. Otherwise, I really enjoyed listening in to this one. A lot of fun hearing all those big fish stories, and gets me really excited to get back up there. I'm jonesing. I'm itching. I need to get back to Northwoods badly.
Oh yeah, you'll be back soon, and I know I get until the like Alliance tournament weekend. I'm gonna be fairly busy. I got some family things this coming weekend. Max will be around for that, and we won't be doing any fishing. Well, might be able to actually get hint hint maybe casting for some Great Lakes potentially. One of those mornings might be able to looking forward to that if that happens. Another following weekend, I do a thing with buddies from high school, college that we go golfing and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to that weekend, just kind of having my mind off of fishing for a weekend. I feel like that's probably good for myself. I've been going really hard. I mean, yes, July was awesome, but I think I took one day off of not fishing. Looking back at the calendar of my notes, maybe two, no, two. There's one day around 4th of July, and there's one day last week that I took off. Otherwise, fishing as hard as possible, making the most of it, and yeah, got some openings left yet, just sprinkled here and there in August. Just kind of filling in mostly weekdays. September, there's a bunch of prime dates open. October and November, of course, too, but um, don't wanna don't wanna wish away time. I'm looking forward to this August cool down bite that we kind of discussed here, and we'll talk about it more on the coming podcast too.
Hey, if a big group was headed up to the Eagle River area, would you guys ever do like a tandem type trip or anything like that?
Yeah, we've done those trips. We've done Clayton and I have we've done a few where we've taken like each two people or each two or three or something like that. You know, because we've each had groups reach out to us, say like, "Hey, can you take 5 people in your boat?" And we're like, no, we're gonna have to get another boat for that." And that's been a lot of fun because usually when we do that, we go fish the same body of water and we're fishing like kind of close to each other, and you can see what's going on, what they're moving on, and you can dial in a pattern like super fast, and
Hmm.
hopefully get a bunch of people on, as many fish as possible. So yeah, we do those, and those are a ton of fun, especially if it's a big group of people that all know each other and, got competition or something in there. I know I took one that follow boat the other weekend. They had that competition of who would catch the first fish, most fish, and the biggest fish, and they just had a half day morning. I'm like, ooh, you guys are ambitious.
Oh,
But
it's cool. I was just curious. I was just kind of thinking, with Labor Day coming up in August, obviously it's kind of a good month for, trips and whatnot. People heading up to the Northwoods, just an idea. If they ever had a bigger group, could have you guys run some tandem trips. That'd be cool.
yeah, I feel like August should theoretically be more busier than like July, because August you can get some phenomenal weather. I mean, obviously you still get your occasional one off like a night in like the 30s or something randomly up here, but you get great weather and there's usually less people up here. It seems like it just starts to go down a little bit, and then obviously it ramps up for Labor Day weekend, and then it shuts off. It's like if you go out that Tuesday after Labor Day weekend, it's like a ghost town up here during the weekdays. Weekends, it's still busy. Plenty of people come up here to fish. But yeah, it kind of cuts back a good bit. But
Cool.
yeah, I don't know if I got anything else to add here tonight. This is a very, very good chop sesh on some recent stories, recent chips, recent big fish. Um,
I want
but
to
I'll
say,
just
Clayton, you did a fantastic job filling in for Brian.
Yes, bravo. You did tremendous. Yay. Yeah. Awesome. Well, before we sign off here, I'll just give out the socials and have Clayton do the same on how you can get in touch with us. So if you guys have Instagrams out there, be sure to follow the Muskies on Tap Instagram, where we have any updates and Instagram reels and all that good stuff. And also my own Instagram is Suggs Fishing, and you can get in touch with me going to that or Facebook, which is Suggs Fishing Guide Service, or my website www.suggsfishing.com. Get in touch with me there. It's got all my numbers and all that good stuff. And yeah, let's get out in the boat together. So here's Clayton with his.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, so you can find me at my name, Clayton Spees, on Instagram. Just send me a message if you want to jump in the boat with me. Again, I've got scattered dates, throughout. Weekends are getting to be pretty full, but weekdays are pretty we can get in for at least half days here and there and maybe a couple full days. September's looking pretty open yet for some prime dates, October, November, very similar to Gus. So yeah, if you got big groups or something, want to jump in, couple tandem boats, those are super fun. Like I really enjoy guiding with Gus and and with some other guys up here. Like those definitely tend to produce a lot of fish because we do help each other out and get on patterns, and we can really put it to the fish up here. So I've got Instagram, Clayton Spees, Facebook. This will do Outdoor Adventures, THISTLE, do Outdoor Adventures. My name, Clayton Spees, on Facebook as well. I have a YouTube channel. This will do Outdoor Adventures. Not a lot of content going up right now. Super busy fishing. It's just burning the candle at both ends if I got to do all that social media stuff. So try and post the really special stuff when it happens, when I can. But we are putting a lot of fish in the boat right now and staying really busy. My phone number is 715-891-1046. Feel free to call or text whenever. If you don't get me, leave me a voicemail. But thank you guys again for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And if anyone wants to get a hold of me, hit me up. Won't be able to take you out fishing or anything for that matter. But
DMs.
yeah, if you want to chat fishing, if you want to chat muskies, hit me up on those Mott DMs. I'm always down. We'll wrap. I'm available.
Oh yeah, Mac's always down. Yeah, and I know every once in a while you shoot me a message. You're like, "Yo, Gus, check the Mod DM. Somebody's asking something really specific about fishing, or like electronics or something." I'm like, "All right, on it."
Yeah. Oh, good stuff. All right. Well, yeah. Thank you too for taking some time here out of your busy schedule. A lot of fun time tonight. Hopefully, you guys have a bunch of success this weekend here, and we'll see you guys on the next one.